I've been sitting on this for a while, debating whether to post it. I'm a 36-year-old guy who used to think he had life mostly figured out: stable job, decent relationship, good friends, and a 5-year plan that made sense on paper. But the past 2 years absolutely shredded every illusion I had about control, fairness, and meaning. I call them the 18 forbidden truths about life, because each one hit me like a slap I didn't see coming. Before any of that, though, it started small, a few symptoms, if you will. I began waking up around 3 a.m. every night, wide awake, with my heart racing like I'd been running. No nightmares, just this gut-level feeling that something was wrong. I couldn't name it, but I knew. My girlfriend at the time, Lila, told me it was just stress from work. My boss said it was probably burnout. My doctor said anxiety. But I knew better. It wasn't a panic disorder. It was my soul trying to warn me that something was about to collapse. The first forbidden truth came quietly. The more stable your life looks, the more fragile it probably is. Within 3 months, everything that defined me, job, home, and relationship, started cracking like thin glass. But I'll get into that in the next part. Right now, I just want to set the tone. This isn't some dramatic, woe is me story. It's a collection of things I learned the hard way, things people don't talk about because they make others uncomfortable. And honestly, they made me uncomfortable too. Still, if you've ever had that quiet 3 a.m. dread, wondering if your life's scaffolding is hollow, you'll understand what's coming next. It started with an email. Funny how most big life changes don't arrive with thunder or fire, just a subject line. Mine said, "Change in departmental structure, immediate effect." I worked in operations for a mid-sized tech company. Nothing glamorous, but I was good at it. The kind of guy who never missed deadlines, who trained the new hires, who quietly fixed other people's mistakes. I thought that loyalty meant something. Spoiler, it didn't. That morning, they called me into a meeting with HR and my manager, who couldn't even look me in the eye. The company was restructuring. My position was being absorbed. Translation, I was out. No severance, no warning. Just a cheap handshake and a thin folder with my transition plan. I walked out in a daze. You ever have one of those moments where the world sounds muted? Like you're underwater, and people's voices become distant and warped? That was me, clutching a cardboard box full of my desk junk, a photo of Lila and me at the lake, a coffee mug from my brother, and a dead plant I'd somehow kept alive for 2 years. That's when the second forbidden truth hit me. Companies don't fire people, they erase them. By the time I got home, I was already rehearsing what to tell Lila. She was on a work call when I walked in, her voice soft and professional, but when she saw my face, her expression changed. She hugged me, said all the right things. "It's just a setback. We'll figure it out. You're too smart to stay down long." I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But something in her tone felt distant, almost like she was reassuring herself. That night, when I couldn't sleep again, I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering if losing my job was the only thing that was about to collapse. I didn't know it yet, but that email was just the first domino. Lila started working later. At first, it made sense. She was in marketing. Her company was going through a big campaign push, and she said she was under pressure. I didn't question it. I even encouraged her to focus on work while I sorted myself out. I told myself it was healthy for both of us. But when you have endless time on your hands and no distractions, you start noticing patterns. The way she'd step outside to take certain calls. How she'd silence her notifications when I walked into the room. I tried not to become that guy, the paranoid, jobless boyfriend spiraling into suspicion. But the third forbidden truth crept in slowly. Love doesn't usually end with a fight. It ends with silence. We stopped talking about our days. We stopped cooking together. The couch became two separate islands. One night, she came home late, hair damp from the rain, or at least that's what she said, and she went straight to shower. I saw her phone light up on the counter. The preview was a text from someone named N. It said, "Did he notice?" I didn't open it. I just stood there, staring at that message, and my hands started shaking. I remember thinking, maybe it's work-related, maybe it's nothing. But deep down, I already knew. When she got out of the shower, she saw the look on my face and froze. "Who's in?" I asked. My voice sounded flat, unfamiliar. She blinked, too long before answering. "A coworker." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I realized I'd just caught her in the middle of a lie so flimsy it didn't even bother to hide. That night, I didn't sleep. Again, the fourth forbidden truth arrived then, in the quiet hum of the refrigerator. You never really know someone until they think you can't help them anymore. The next morning, she was gone before sunrise. No note, no goodbye. Just an empty half of the bed and a damp towel on the bathroom floor. Losing my job hurt. But losing her, or realizing I never really had her, cracked something deeper. I thought rock bottom would feel like chaos, but it didn't. It felt like quiet. You don't realize how much of your identity depends on other people until they're gone. The job gave me purpose. Lila gave me stability. Without both, the days started blending together. Just gray mornings, cheap coffee, and the hum of my own thoughts echoing through an apartment that suddenly felt too big. Rock bottom didn't announce itself with some cinematic breakdown. It came quietly, in the form of a Tuesday afternoon when I realized I hadn't spoken to another human being in 3 days. That's when the fifth forbidden truth hit me. Rock bottom isn't a place. It's a pattern you start accepting. I remember sitting on the kitchen floor, scrolling through my phone just to feel connected to something. Everyone else seemed to be moving forward. Promotions, engagements, travel photos. I couldn't even bring myself to reply to texts from friends asking, "How's everything?" I lied, of course. Said I was fine. Said I was recharging. Said I needed a little time. But the truth was, I was drifting. The next day, I went for a walk just to prove to myself I could still function. The world looked different. Or maybe I did. I ended up at the pier, watching seagulls fight over scraps of food. This old man sat down next to me, total stranger, and without a word, handed me half his sandwich. We sat there in silence for a bit, until he said, "You look like someone who's been rearranged." It caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" I asked. He shrugged. "Life breaks you into pieces sometimes. But the trick is realizing you get to decide how to rearrange them." He got up and left before I could even ask his name. That was the first real moment of peace I'd felt in months. That night, I wrote down what he said in a notebook. It felt small, but it was something, a flicker of direction. Then came the sixth forbidden truth. When you think you've lost everything, what you've really lost is who you used to be. And maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. A few weeks after that talk with the old man, I was still in this foggy, half-alive state. No job, no Lila, no sense of direction. My days were just coffee, walks, and staring at my ceiling like it might give me answers. Then one morning, I went to a small cafe near my apartment. Mostly because I couldn't stand my own silence anymore. I ordered a black coffee and sat by the window, pretending to read. That's when I noticed her. Not Lila, not even close. She was probably in her late 40s, sitting at the table next to mine with a stack of worn notebooks. Every few minutes, she'd stop writing, stare out the window, and smile like she knew something the rest of us didn't. Eventually, she turned to me and said, "You've got that look, the one people get when they've just had their world demolished." I laughed. "That obvious?" She smiled. "I teach writing workshops. People come to me right after divorces, firings, losses. They always have that same look, like they're waiting for their old life to come back." I told her I wasn't a writer, and she said, "That's fine. You don't write to be a writer. You write to stop lying to yourself." That line hit me like a punch to the gut. We ended up talking for an hour. She told me her name was Nora, that she used to be a corporate attorney before she burned out and started teaching creative journaling. She scribbled an address on a napkin and said, "Come by this Saturday." It's not therapy. It's honesty. I almost didn't go. But when Saturday came, I found myself outside this old community center, wondering what the hell I was doing. Inside, there were 7 people sitting in a circle, notebooks open. And that's where the seventh forbidden truth showed itself. You can't heal in isolation. Pain needs witnesses. For the first time in months, I said out loud that I'd lost my job, my relationship, and most of my identity, and no one flinched. No one tried to fix it. They just listened. I walked home that night lighter, still broken, but not alone. And I realized, maybe that's where real recovery begins. Not when things get better, but when someone finally sees the wreckage and doesn't look away. For the first time in a long time, I had something to look forward to. Nora's group became a kind of anchor. Every Saturday morning, same chairs, same coffee, same quiet space where people told the truth about their lives. I started writing again. At first it was just fragments, thoughts, questions, lists. Then entire pages poured out. I wrote about losing Lila, losing my job, even that 3 a.m. dread that had haunted me for months. It felt like bleeding on paper, but it also felt real. 2 months in, Nora pulled me aside after a session. "You ever think about helping others, right?" she asked. I laughed. "Me? I'm the one who came here falling apart." She shrugged. "That's exactly why you'd be good at it." That night, for the first time since everything collapsed, I looked up job postings, not for corporate operations, but for something creative. Something that didn't feel like I was just rearranging spreadsheets until I died. I found a position for an assistant at a local nonprofit that ran creative workshops for veterans and trauma survivors. It paid less than half of what I used to make, but it felt right. That decision, to apply, became the eighth forbidden truth. The right path almost never looks impressive from the outside. I applied. I interviewed. I even got the call. I was hired. I called my brother to tell him. He cheered like I'd just won the lottery. It felt like the first turn of good luck in months. But life has this cruel sense of timing. 2 days before I was supposed to start, I got a call from my mom. Her voice was shaking. My dad, who I thought was fine, had collapsed at work. Heart attack. Gone before the ambulance even arrived. It didn't feel real. I didn't cry at first. Just numbness. The ninth forbidden truth hit me while I sat in that hospital waiting room, staring at my mom's trembling hands. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready again. It keeps taking. Everything I'd built myself back up for, the fragile sense of progress, just cracked. That night, I sat in my car outside my parents' house, unable to go inside, whispering to the empty seat. I was just starting to get up again. And somewhere, deep down, I realized that grief isn't a new storm. It's the same one, just returning from another direction. The day of my dad's funeral was gray, that kind of sky that looks like it's holding its breath. Everyone said the usual things. He was a good man. He'll always be with you. He's in a better place. I nodded, thanked them, and kept my face still. But inside, I was cracking. My dad and I weren't close. We didn't fight often, but we never really talked either. He was old school, the kind of man who believed emotions were a luxury. His version of love was fixing things silently, never saying the words out loud. I spent most of my life trying to earn his approval, and when he died, I realized I'd never actually gotten it. After the burial, I was helping my mom sort through his things in the garage. She handed me a small wooden box with my name on it. "He said this was for you someday," she said. Inside was a letter, yellowed, folded perfectly. It started with, "I was never good at saying the right things, so I'll write them instead." He talked about how proud he was of me, how he'd watched me fight through life with more heart than he ever had. He even admitted he'd envied me for being able to express things he couldn't. That was when I lost it. The dam finally broke. I cried harder than I ever had in my life. My mom sat down next to me and held my hand. That's when she said something that's stuck with me ever since. "Your father didn't know how to be soft, but he learned it because of you." And that became the 10th forbidden truth. Sometimes love doesn't look like love until it's gone. I didn't go back home that night. I stayed at my mom's. We talked until morning, about him, about everything we never said. It felt like grief and healing were somehow sharing the same space. The next week, I started my new job anyway. I almost didn't, but then I remembered what Nora said. You don't write to be a writer. You write to stop lying to yourself. I figured maybe helping others find their voice could help me keep mine. What I didn't know was that my new job would bring someone into my life who'd change everything, again. Her name was Mara. She was one of the program coordinators at the nonprofit, the kind of person who walked into a room and made it feel like sunlight followed her in. Not loud or overly cheerful, just grounded. She had that rare kind of calm that made everyone else slow down. We clicked almost immediately. Maybe it was because we'd both been through stuff. She'd lost her husband a few years back, though she didn't talk about it much. She said grief had made her quieter, but also kinder. I understood that. At first, we just worked together. Long days running writing sessions, organizing workshops, sorting through grant paperwork. Then coffee turned into late lunches. Lunches turned into walks. Walks turned into evenings sitting in the parking lot, not wanting to say goodbye. It wasn't love at first sight. It was love that snuck in quietly, the kind that feels like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. That's when the 11th forbidden truth revealed itself. Healing doesn't mean you stop bleeding. It means you learn how to live with the scars. With Mara, I started believing in the future again. I told her things I'd never told anyone, about Lila, my dad, the insomnia, even that old man at the pier. She listened like every word mattered. For the first time, I felt like maybe life wasn't punishing me. Maybe it was just redirecting me. Then, one evening, everything shifted. I'd stayed late at the center to finish some reports. When I went to drop them off at Mara's office, her door was half open. She was on the phone, crying softly. I froze when I heard her say my name. I can't tell him. Not yet. He's been through too much. My heart stopped. My mind raced. Was she sick? Was she leaving? The next day, I asked her about it. She looked at me for a long moment, eyes glistening, then said quietly, I was going to tell you soon. My husband, he's not dead. He's in a long-term care facility. Brain injury. I didn't know how to explain it without losing you. The world spun for a second. I didn't get angry. I just went silent. Because how do you process something like that? She wasn't lying to manipulate me. She was lying to protect something. Him, me, maybe both. And that led to the 12th forbidden truth. People lie not always to deceive, but sometimes to survive. I didn't walk away. Not yet. But it changed everything. The air between us, the way I looked at her, the way I looked at love itself. Because once again, I was standing on the edge of something real and something broken. After Mara's confession, the world felt unsteady again, like the ground had shifted just slightly beneath my feet. I didn't know whether to be angry, heartbroken, or grateful she'd finally told me the truth. Mostly, I just felt tired. We still saw each other at work, still talked, but it wasn't the same. There was this quiet hesitation in every sentence, this invisible wall between us. She told me she visited him every Sunday, her husband, the man in the coma, and I could see the guilt flicker behind her eyes when she said it. For a while, I convinced myself it didn't matter. That love was messy and complicated and that I could handle it. But one night, as I was leaving work, I saw her in the parking lot sitting in her car, gripping the steering wheel, sobbing. That image gutted me. The next morning, I asked her if she wanted me to drive her to the facility. She looked surprised, then just nodded. When we got there, the nurse greeted her by name and led us into a quiet room filled with machines and soft beeping sounds. Her husband, Evan, lay motionless. Pale, eyes closed, breathing through a tube. She took his hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. I still talk to him, she whispered, even though he can't answer. Some days I think he hears me. I stood there, not sure where to put my hands or my heart. That's when the 13th forbidden truth sank in. Love doesn't always end when it should. Sometimes it just changes shape and keeps living inside you. On the way back, she apologized for putting me in that position. I told her she didn't need to. But deep down, I knew I couldn't stay in that half space between her past and her present. That night, I made my decision. I wrote her a letter, honest, calm, maybe too calm. I told her that what we had mattered, but I couldn't ask her to split her heart in two, that she needed to finish one story before starting another. I left it on her desk and walked out without saying goodbye. The 14th forbidden truth came to me in that moment of quiet heartbreak. Sometimes walking away isn't giving up. It's refusing to compete with ghosts. I thought that would be the end of it. But a week later, I got a call that made me question everything again. It was Nora. Her voice was shaking. "Mara's been in an accident," she said. "You should come." When Nora called, I remember the world narrowing to a tunnel. Just her voice, my heartbeat, and the sound of my keys hitting the floor. By the time I reached the hospital, the sky had gone black. The receptionist didn't even need to ask who I was there for. She just pointed down the hall, eyes full of quiet pity. Mara was in ICU. A drunk driver had blown through a red light, T-boned her car. I saw her through the glass first. Bruises across her face, tubes running from her arms. She looked small, fragile, nothing like the woman who used to walk into a room and make it brighter. The nurse said she was stable but unconscious. I sat there for hours, just holding her hand, talking softly like she could still hear me. I told her I got the job, that I'd been trying to forgive the world again, that I didn't blame her for anything. Around midnight, Nora showed up. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "She was coming to see you," she said. "She had something she wanted to give you." She handed me a folded piece of paper, crumpled, but still sealed. It was addressed to me. I hesitated before opening it. My hands were shaking. Inside was a note written in Mara's looping handwriting. "You once said pain needs witnesses. You've been mine. I didn't know how to tell you that Evan passed last month. I didn't want you to think I was moving on too fast, or that I was using you to fill the silence he left behind. But I want to see you. I want to start again, honestly this time." I didn't even realize I was crying until the paper blurred. That night, she didn't wake up. The doctors said her condition was unpredictable, brain swelling, possible damage. I stayed until morning, watching the first light break through the window. The 15th forbidden truth came quietly then. Life doesn't always give you closure. Sometimes you just have to create your own. I walked out of that hospital feeling both empty and strangely at peace. Because maybe that's the point. We don't get to decide how long people stay or when things make sense. We just get to love honestly when we can. In the months that followed, I visited her every Sunday, read her the journal entries I'd written. She never woke up, but I kept showing up anyway, because showing up, I realized, is its own kind of love. And if there's one final truth I've learned, the 18th forbidden truth, it's this. You can survive almost anything, as long as you keep finding reasons to show up.